Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Impact Factor. I am your host, Katie Manakin, and this episode features a conversation I had with Dr. Anamika Bajpai, who talks about her experience coming to the US for a postdoc and then deciding to pursue a career in industry and the difficulties she ran into as a non US citizen. So, a lot of interesting information and great conversation, so I hope you enjoy. Let's go back a little bit and why don't you give us some background on where you did your PhD, what it was in, and just sort of some of your background.
Yeah. So I started my grad school. Actually, I'll give you a little more background about. So
Yep.
I am undergrad in life sciences and chemistry. And then after my undergrad, that's like in India, it's called like a BSc. So that's like a Bachelor in Science. Then
Oh
I
wow.
enrolled into master's program, and my master's was major in forensic science.
Cool.
So yeah, so from life science to forensic science. So like life science and then like after that, before that and after that. Yeah. And then like my master's thesis was um on to develop a methodology that was the based on the antibody and antigen reaction to actually to detect the old blood stain age. So
Oh.
yeah, so and like the whole thesis was master thesis was about that I was actually collecting old blood stains from like 25 years before, like old blood stains, 30 years before old stain, and I actually compared three different methodology and came up with the best methodology, so that all the forensic expert can utilize that methodology to detect the whole blood stains. And that's when actually my immunology journey started. That's when I heavily started reading about the literature about antigen antibody reaction, more about antibodies. And after even finishing my master's, submitting my thesis, I wasn't sure that I will actually um, start my grad program, like my PhD in neuroimmunology. But in India, it's like to get the fellowship, we write here a grant, pre-doctoral grant. So they have like a exam. That's like a subjective exam that you have to take, and that's like a national level exam. And once you pass that exam with a merit score, then they will give you fellowship to cover your PhD. So I actually passed that exam, and Government of India actually awarded me with that fellowship, and that's when I decided, okay, like I'll go with the neuroimmunology as my PhD thesis. So my PhD thesis was in a brain abscess, so it's a bacterial infection in brain that is very common in India. Um, and yeah, so and my PhD started in 2010, and I submitted thesis in 2014. I published paper as like every PhD student does. Attended several conferences, given talks, and yeah, and then while I was finishing PhD, I started applying for postdoc, and in 2015 January I came here in Drexel University as a postdoc.
Nice.
Hmm.
So you answered one of my questions already, I think was um so your master's, was that a 2-year master's?
Hmm. Yeah.
And then and then is it and then your PhD was 4 years.
Yes.
Is that right?
4 years. Yes.
Okay. Is that traditional in India, or was it shorter because you already had your master's?
No. So actually, your PhD doesn't tie with whether or not you have masters.
Okay.
It's like a totally like a PhD depends on on your PI, on yourself,
Mhm.
and on your topic, what kind of topic you choose. Luckily, my whole thesis on uh, with the patient samples.
Mhm.
So I was collecting. samples from those brain abscess patient and characterizing bacteria and studying the immune response in those samples. So that was because I think that was not depending on the animal model stuff. So I would say like that's why like it took 4 years.
Hmm.
Yeah, but the average time of PhD is like a 5 and 5.5 years. So
Okay.
yeah.
And um, what was it like? I guess you were sort of in a related field, but did you find switching to immunology to be kind of new and
Yes.
overwhelming at all? Yeah.
Yeah. It was really new and challenging when I started my PhD in 2010. I think first year in my PhD, I read maybe like a more than 100 papers or 150 papers
Wow.
just to understand the immunology.
Mm.
Even though like my master's thesis was on antigen antibody reaction, but it was not that in depth as
Right.
is like a human immunology.
More applied, right? It was
Yeah, yeah.
for a specific
So
reason. Yeah.
yeah, so I still remember like in my dorm room, I actually like I used to read all the papers and like make a sketch like with the cytokine releasing from the vessels like and how like the chemokines come in and then like a receptor. So that was like my own sketch to understand like how exactly this works in the human body. And the more I read, the more I started making stories out of the immunology.
Oh.
And I still like relate immunology as we have war and we are trying to defend our country. So I still like relate immunology or like our immune system, body immune system with that and the more I like for my research career, I like keep like narrowing down. So like I started with like a general immunology and then neuroimmunology, and then I like targeted more into macrophage biology. So now like if I talk about um with other people about my research, I say like okay, I'm like working with the true called macrophage.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. So, did you know, or I guess at what point did you feel like you wanted to get your PhD? Was it after your master's, or was that always the plan? It sort of just
It was
became
always a
the
plan.
topic. Okay,
I
the
think
topic was what was different.
not the topic I planned, but I it was I think like when I was in masters, I it was like a kind of became my dream to get PhD.
Yeah,
Um, I just like wasn't sure like where, when, how, but I had that dream that I want to get an PhD.
that's great. I love that.
Yeah.
And um, did you get all of your degrees at the same university? No.
No, no, no. My undergrad is from like a different university, from my hometown, and
Okay.
then for my master's actually because it was like a specific forensic science, and at that time not like forensic science not that much popular subject in India as like a master's subject. So I think like when I graduated in forensic science, there are like only 7 to 8 university in India. Those were conducting masters in forensic science. So that's why like I had to like move out from my hometown to complete my degree in master forensic science. And then for my PhD, I was in med school that is like a top 5 med school in India, and it's
Oh.
like a very hard to enroll into that because like the only student who have that government funded fellowship, federal government funded fellowship, those are can be only enroll in that institute. So luckily I had that funding, so I could get into that.
Interesting. And it sounds like your PhD had a significant work on patient samples, and since
Hmm.
you were tied to a med school, that sort of makes sense, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Very cool. Um Okay, so let's go back to your plan. So you had a
Mhm.
dream to get a PhD, and then did your dream expand? Did your plan or your dream extend beyond that, or were you sort of up for anything after that?
So yeah, means like we jump or like we achieve a dream and then we kind of like celebrate it and then like think about okay what's next. um and then I was like okay like now I'm into my PhD and what's next, and I was seeing like all of um all of grad student, like senior grad student in my institute, they were like going for postdocs. um and mostly they are like they were coming to US. So I like as a fresh first year PhD student, I was like there must be something nice to
Yeah.
do research. That's why like everybody is like getting visa and going to there. So I was like because I was just like a first year student.
Mhm.
I was still learning like what is what is about like publishing these scientific article, how to publish, how to analyze data and stuff. But I was also like fixing my goals after PhD. So the more I moved on, the more I learned, the more um, like going to conferences. I came here to attend a conference because I was a student of a neuroimmunology. I came here in 2012 to attend Society for Neuroscience. I met I met like scientists, neuroscientists there. I I like get familiarized with them, like what kind of research they do, how to get here to do research. Um, yeah, and then when I until the point when I submitted my thesis, I was like, okay, like this is what I want to do further after my PhD. So yeah, so while I was like writing my PhD, I also writing to different scientists in United States, um, so that like I can get my postdoc here.
And you ended up in Philadelphia at Drexel.
Yes, yes. Philadelphia. So Philadelphia was because like a Kara showed like a interest in hiring me, and also because um just a moment. Um she showed interest hiring me, and also because her research I was very interested in into that um diabetic wound healing project. That was at that time I wasn't sure that I will be ending up doing macrophage biology research. But uh, since I was into neuroimmunology, I was thinking like, okay, she's doing diabetic wound healing. Maybe like I can do something related with the diabetes and some like a neuroimmunology, or like something like trying to um, tie these two area. But when I came here, the more I read about diabetic wound healing, the more I read about macrophage biology, I was like, okay, this is super interesting, and
Yeah.
this is like a really hot area to to do research. And I would say like I was also like very enthusiastic at that point. Means I'm still enthusiastic, but at that point, like being a like a fresh PhD, like
Oh yeah.
like coming hot out of oven. And she was also like a young faculty. We I think like our both frequency got matched, and she was like kept giving me new projects. It was like I think in Kara's lab I was worked on 5 different disease model and
Wow.
looking into macrophage biology. And yeah, so like she was like kept giving me project, and I was like I kept running on them. That was like a wonderful time. I learned a lot in her lab, I would say. Um, say it like a science, how to do good science, say it how to learn about like American culture, learn about
Hmm.
American work culture. So yeah, it was
That's
a
good.
really nice time there.
Oh, so I was gonna ask you you how you feel about like the postdoc experience in general, outside of like your specific experience, but like um as sort of this like secondary research experience where you're not getting a degree, but you're not a faculty member. Do you have any thoughts on that?
I would say it's a different learning experience. Um, I came here as a postdoc, and the more the year passes, the more I thought that okay, I want to be in academia,
Mm.
um, be it like a research scientist, be it faculty, or like like there are like a different positions you can say. And a
Sure.
postdoc is the tenure where you can. It's like a kind of like a buffering between your masters and being a faculty. It's like I would say like a very good training program for you to be a faculty, because not only you learn how to do science, you actually learn how to do grant writing, how to publish paper, how to start your project from the scratch, like starting from your hypothesis, and how to finalize it, conclude it, and like make it either a paper or a grant. So I would say like it's like a really good training program. And also like a person like me who is coming from a different country, and want to establish myself into this country, it actually like it gives you time also to think about like where to go and how to go.
Yeah.
Um, so I would say, and also like it's like a different people perspective also. Like I'm taking this whole training in as like a this perspective. People have like a different perspective. But yeah, I think like it's being super productive for me. Um, I was a postdoc in Temple University also from 2018 to 2020. So I had total of 5.5 years of postdoc experience, and
Okay.
I would say like I have learned a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Not just like experimental science, but um, overall about science, like how exactly science works, um,
Yeah.
especially like academic science. Yeah.
So in 2020, you were still planning to continue into academia, or was that your
So,
plan still?
so actually, what happened? Um, so I was a postdoc at Drexel for 3 years, and then I switched to Temple University again as a postdoc. And in Temple University, I got actually my postdoctoral fellowship from American Heart Association. That was in January 2020.
Okay.
At the same time, I had my daughter also. So
Mm.
um, when I got my postdoc fellowship, I was actually like I have like a 6 months infant.
Yeah.
Um, So, but again, what happened in by the March, this pandemic happened, and
Mm.
the timing was so crucial that this pandemic lockdown happened, and my husband got job into different state. So like I was in a situation that either I continue my current job at Temple University, being in lockdown, being in pandemic, and live here in
Mm-hmm.
Philadelphia and do not move with my husband, or I go to in totally brand new place, find a job again as a postdoc, having an infant, and like doing from the scratch.
Yeah.
Um, and I was like a new mom also, so I was like
Yeah.
I'm still emotionally attached, but at that time that attachment
Y-
was very different.
Yeah, I bet.
So I really like it didn't want to put my infant or child in daycare or to
Yeah.
babysitter or something, and especially in pandemic I was like no, this is like a really risky.
Yeah.
So I took a hard decision. I actually resigned from my American Heart Association fellowship
Ah.
right after 6 months after getting it, and I quit my job and moved with my daughter to my husband's place,
Okay.
Ohio.
Wow.
And but it was at that time it was a really hard decision, because from those 5 years, I the only thing I wanted was that fellowship. And when I
Yeah.
got it, I was like, no, I don't want it because I
Yeah.
have different priorities. But when I went to Ohio, actually, I really got time to think about about my life goals, like be
Mhm.
it personal goals, be it financial goals, be it professional goals, and I utilized my that time. I actually got a lot of time to introspect myself, like where I am going and what kind of life I want to lead.
Yeah.
Um, and then the more I thought and the more I started connecting with my colleagues or my friends who are already as a fresh faculty, like a new body faculty.
Mhm.
Um, and then I was like, no, I don't want to be into this grand marathon. Like
Yeah.
for
S-
me, um, my
As a new
loving
mom too.
yeah, as a new mom, and also for like I always loved academic research.
Right.
That was always being my love, but the thing was like I didn't want to go into this grand marathon. I feel like this is like a running my own startup. This is like a really risky business, and I don't want to do this for rest of my life because getting one RO1, maybe it's easier, but the after 4 years or 5 years, you are again in square one. Like you are again
Yeah.
like race of getting the second and then third and then fourth until you get retired. I'm like, no, this is don't. I don't want to do this. I like research, but I just like a don't like a grand marathon. So then I was like, okay, if I don't like it and I don't want to be in this academic research, like what else I can do? I thought like maybe I can go into writing, and I started
Hmm.
taking like a LinkedIn courses also for medical writing, scientific writing, and then after 6 months, I was like, no, I don't want to do this either. So then the next option was okay, what about research in like industry research, and then again I started connecting with the people on LinkedIn. I started making new connections like heavily, adding like a people, um, taking informational interviews with them,
Yes.
asking for their career journey, their career path, who already had a postdoc experience and then they jumped into industry. Um, so I would say I around talk with the 30 or 40 people in industry, and then I made my point, okay, I want to get into industrial research because it's even though I'm leaving academia, but I will not leave research.
Yeah.
And my whole idea is to be in research, not it could be like academic or industry. So
You're still discovering new things, right? That's
yeah,
the whole.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So I was like, okay, if one thing is sorted that I want to be in industrial research. The next thing was okay, how to get into this?
Yeah.
Because I'm an immigrant, I have visa issues. I need to
Right.
have visa to get a job here. Okay, I was on independent visa because sorry, I was on dependent visa because I I quit my job and I became independent on my husband.
Hmm.
So I started again reaching out to people and asking attorney also what kind of visa I can get so that I can be in job, and the only answer was either H1, that is
Yep.
the lottery system, and the O1, that is in the category of extraordinary ability. So,
Oh.
yeah, and not all the companies sponsor O1 visa.
Okay.
I would say a startup companies, they may not be aware of O1 visa, and
Yeah.
so I started applying to companies, several companies, I started giving interviews to several company people. Some people liked me, some people didn't like me, but the main hurdle was getting visa sponsorship.
Hmm.
Um, even though as I when you apply in any former company, even in the application they ask you whether or not you need a sponsorship, and if you say yes, and if they are not hiring immigrant or if they are not a sponsor visa at the moment, they may not like even looked at your
They'll just
uh,
skip your whole
CV. Yeah,
resume.
yeah.
Yeah.
So that was like a really big hurdle. um but finally, like my current company Insight, like they were sponsoring visa, and I qualified their interviews round, and they finally sponsored my visa, and I'm here working in Insight.
Well, that's great. How
Mhm.
long do you think you were interviewing um, with
one
that?
year 1 year
1 year. Wow.
1 year, and I swear I I have applied around 500 positions in
Wow.
different companies. Yeah, and I actually like given around like a dozens of interviews. And it
Wow.
wasn't like that I did not qualify. I qualified. They
Yeah.
liked me as a candidate, but just because of visa, they
Yep.
couldn't offer me the job.
It's just a whole other like factor that
Yeah,
you had to deal with. It's not
yeah,
just your
yeah,
credibility or your skill set. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah. I still remember like one day I was just like emailing to one of my PI, and she was asking like, okay, like why you are having so much issues. I'm like, see my condition, like I'm
Yeah.
like I need a sponsorship. There are like not all the companies are getting me sponsored. I need to qualify interviews round, and then I need to convince them to do like
Sponsor
my
you.
visa. Yeah, so yeah. That was really
Wow.
tough. That was really nightmare.
Yeah. Well, so but I heard a couple things that I want to highlight. One, you're it sounds like, in a tough time of moving and not having a job lined up, you were able to kind of um take that time to explore what you really wanted to do, which I think is it's almost like we're encouraged to go from one thing to another so quickly we don't have time to really step back and say, is this what I really want?
Yeah, yeah,
So that's great. And also the fact that you used your network or expanded your network to do, informational interviews. I think I recommend that all the time because, you know, it's one thing to, apply for a job, get the job, realize you like it or don't like it, but you could skip all of that by just talking to someone who's doing that, and find out what it's like.
yeah. That's true, and that works
So
for me.
so you've been there for how long now?
Um, in my present company, Insight,
Yeah,
it's been only 2 months. Even
2
though
months. Okay.
I got job offer last year January,
Wow.
uh, but visa took around 10 months.
Wow.
Yeah, and the visa is actually like when I posted about my joining at Insight, I also posted like this O1 visa should be granted as a award from USCIS rather just a visa.
Yeah.
Because the first line of the visa says either you are Nobel Prize winner or you qualify under these three categories.
Wow.
And when I read the front page of that visa like eligibility criteria, my mind was blown out. I was like, oh my god, am I that great to qualify that extraordinary ability visa? But like I gathered all the documents and all my credibility, like credential, I would say, like so far, um, like like how many scientists have cited my work, um, like how much like a people, general public have read about my work, like how much media attention my work has got. Those kind of stuff like helped me to get this visa. Um, yeah, but. Yeah, I submitted 14 recommendation letter around the globe from the scientists by whom like I like never worked with them. Those were like independent recommendation
Wow.
letters they call it. Yeah.
Wow.
And so like the main thing is like you find out those scientists with whom you never work but they appreciate your science.
That's awesome. That's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, what a What a victory.
It
So
is. It is.
it
That's why I'm
is.
saying
I
like
mean,
it shouldn't be called as visa. It should be called as award.
an award for all that time and effort. I like
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Um, so 2 months. Do you like it? Do you like what you're
Yes.
doing? What are you
Yes.
doing? What
Yes.
kind of research?
So I'm here in a autoimmunity and inflammation discovery group.
Hmm.
Um, yeah. So I would say like this is like a really nice smooth transition from my academic research to industrial research. I would say. I'm really liking my work. I'm really enjoying it. It's like a same kind of research I'm doing. It's like I'm in a discovery group. The
Hmm.
whole point of my job role is to discover and come up with the new target, the new molecules. For my work could do a lot of skin fibrosis. So we have bunch of targets and molecules to try on the skin fibrosis. Yeah,
Very
that's really
cool.
cool.
Yeah, I love when I hear people who are enjoying the research that exists in industry because sometimes it's not as flexible and it doesn't allow you to be as creative because there's some goals that they have, and but this sounds ideal for someone who just loves research.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say like so far it's been really good. And yeah, of course, like you have to stick with the company's policies and
Hmm.
their goals. Uh, that's that's like you have always to keep into your mind. But as far as research, I'm really enjoying. It's not different from academic research, I would say. Like I have always heard like uh, the industrial research is about like they have a set protocol and you have to
Yeah,
follow 1 to 10. It's not like we are in discovery group. Like we
that's
discover
great.
things. Yeah, we make protocol like I have always make in academic research. So
Nice.
yeah.
Very cool. Well, a happy ending to the story so far, right?
Yeah.
Um, okay, so I want to wrap up with a couple questions that I've been asking most of my guests. Are you ready for this?
Yeah.
So, first thing is, what was something during your PhD that was and specifically your PhD that was challenging that you faced?
Challenging. Um, I would say like to decide what I want to do after my PhD. That was challenging for me. Because like there were like several avenues that were open. Uh, like I could be go for just like a straight from PhD to faculty positions. I could like even go for like any federal job in India after my PhD. Uh, but I chose like a coming here and being a postdoc. Yeah,
Yeah,
so that was really challenging. Yeah.
yeah. Good answer.
And the other thing is like a challenging part was also like to understand how does PhD work.
Ah,
Yeah, because when I was doing masters was like a semester. Like
yeah.
you study 1 semester, you give exam, and then second you give exam, and the fourth and thesis, and then you are done. You are getting degree. But PhD
Yep.
is not about like a semester, right? It's not like
No.
about like a passing exam and then you are first year, second year, third year. And no one has taught me
Yeah.
that it's not like a first year, second year, third year. It's not like a, okay, like a, you have data and you will get paper. It's about like
Right.
a making
Maybe,
making
maybe
your
not.
yeah making your path by yourself, and nobody is here to teach you. Means
Yeah.
yeah means there are PIs while you are doing your PhD, but they are not like their spoon feeder as you
Right.
have in your undergrad and masters, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I would say yeah. So now like when I see like any fresh PhD means like a first year or second year PhD, and if I feel or if I sense that okay like they are lost, you can sense it. They are lost. They
Oh,
just like
yeah.
don't know how it works, right? So I just like get time, pause myself, and take their time and just to try to explain like how PhD works.
Yeah.
It's it's like a I still remember like 3 months back, one of not my friends, my sister friend, my younger sister friend, she's doing PhD in Germany,
Hmm.
and I just called her randomly, and she was telling me how badly she was stuck in PhD.
Oh,
She just don't know how to pull herself out, and
yeah.
I was like, "Here, you are in charge of your PhD. Like you should clear your path and you should enlighten your path." So
Yeah.
there is a no one to tell you how to bind up your PhD, or how to conclude your data, or how to analyze your data. You have to tell your PI that this is how you want and take his suggestion rather waiting on him to guide you.
Yes. Absolutely.
But the thing is not everywhere students are getting that kind of suggestion or
Advice.
advice uh,
Yeah.
about how to wrap up the PhD.
Well, I'm hoping that this podcast will be able to help people if they are listening. So, so my next question was, what advice do you have to give yourself from when you were in your first year of your PhD, which you may have just answered, but do you have anything else to add to that?
Yeah, I would say just your mind should be open and your ears and eyes
Oh,
should be open. Just open, keep open yourself, and talk with a lot of people, irrespective of
mm,
whether you want to be in academic research, you want to be in industrial research, whether or not you are a very sure that okay, I want to go there, but still keep open your ears,
yeah.
and because you don't know where your life will take you, even though you are in charge of your life, but still you don't know where your life will take you. So I would say just keep open and your ear and mind, and listen what other people are doing, and maybe you never know maybe what your inner soul wants to do because sometimes you just that's what I realize when during pandemic or
Hmm.
during lockdown, that I was keep doing academic research, and I was in research, just jumping from here to there, and I just did not take pause and introspect myself what I really want to do.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
when I had that a career break, I called it career break, not like a pandemic or something. I just call it career break.
That's
And
great.
yeah, and when I had time to really think about, I find myself I really not doing what I really wanted to do.
Hmm.
I I now feel okay, I always wanted to be associated with a non-profit organization, organize winter drive or food drive, or
Yep.
motivate young adults for their education, or if they are lost during their PhD, or just help them, support them. I
Yeah.
always wanted to do. And being just keep doing research, keep working 10 hours every day or 12 hour every day, just keep writing your paper, thinking about your paper. I just losing that thing
Yeah.
which I really wanted to do.
Yeah.
So that 2.5 years actually I actually reorganize myself,
Mm.
reprioritize, and I got involved in many those kind of activity which I always wanted to do when I was
That's
young.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um. So yeah. So now what I do whenever I get chance, or if I meet with the people or person, I just okay invite me. I just talk to undergrads.
Yeah.
If yeah, I talk to undergrads whether they are in India, or maybe my cousin's college, or a university,
Hmm.
and just okay organize a Zoom call, and 15 to
Yeah.
20 undergrads or master student, just just to support them morally, mentally, uh that that imposter syndrome or something.
Yeah,
Um, so I really feel great about that. I really feel like okay, I'm doing something.
yeah,
So I would say like a pandemic has given me that. Like I
that's
just like
great.
never got chance to think about those those dreams which I really wanted to pursue.
That's great. I love
Um,
that. I love hearing positive pandemic stories too, because
yeah.
there's plenty of negative ones, but the positive ones are also good.
Means I would say like means you can say like the negative one is that I quit my academic
Hmm.
research career, but I would count on positives.
Positive, yeah. Okay, so my last question is, do you have a good memory or story from when you were doing your PhD that you would like to share?
Oh yeah, several memories.
Oh,
Several
great. I love
memories.
that.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I would say like several memories from my PhDs, several memories from my both of my postdoc labs. So, uh, I would say like I since I always enjoy my research and I always proud of my research. All those late night experiments are my golden memories.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, like I still like during my PhD my for my patient samples that was collaboration from neurosurgery department in other med school, not from my med school. And the key was that because it was to like my PhD was about the bacterial characterization in brain abscess sample. The key was to collect the fresh brain abscess sample to cultivate
Ah,
those bacteria.
okay.
So, and the surgery had no timing. It could be 12
Yeah.
a.m. in the night, 2 a.m. in the night, and I remember like I used to got calls from resident like a neurosurgeon and saying like in the late night evening call and say like okay, I'm gonna operate this patient 2 a.m. So
Wow.
so Anamika would go there 1 a.m. standing there in neurosurgery department and waiting on to collect that patient sample. So I would say like at that time it was tough, but now I feel like okay, that is like my golden memory. That
Yeah.
that now I feel like that was really fun doing that. All
Well,
my
because
late
when
night experiments are ties with like several golden memories, like just like eating outside the lab and just like
yeah,
with the other your lab mates. Um,
yeah,
I feel like I made like a extended family in those lab
yeah,
mates now. We still like sometimes like time to time we all get connected and talk and like we only talk about those late night dinners.
yeah.
Uh,
Because everybody was there and everybody was miserable, but
yeah,
now looking back, you're like, wow, that was special.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
So yeah,
that's
when I
good.
was Drexel, I remember my Drexel PI was like she was like I would say like she used to celebrate all little and big things in our lab.
Yeah.
Um, so like every paper got published, irrespective of impact factor.
Hmm.
We all would go for happy hour, irrespective of
Nice.
whether it's like a master thesis paper or postdoc paper. It could be science advances. It could be like two impact paper, but we all would go for celebration. So, and she was it was like a more about a lab bonding and celebrating every person achievement. The one time as a lab retreat we went to upstate New York, the whole lab of we went to upstate New
Oh,
York. We spent in a lake house actually. One of my lab mates lake house was there, so we were there for
nice.
3 days, and those were like a really precious memories I have from there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's important to celebrate all victories, no matter how small, because otherwise it can be kind of draining to
Yeah.
feel like
Yeah. And
you haven't celebrated in a while.
especially in research because um like your every project is nothing if you don't publish it, and it's like a hard truth that not every project get published, right?
Yeah.
But if you're not celebrating these tiny little things, there would be like no celebration in research, right?
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
means what does it mean if you are not having a good paper, or you do not have data for a talk or for a poster? It means like there is nothing if you do not celebrate your little things.
Yeah.
I would say like if you are in research, celebrating tiny moments are important, because you don't know
Absolutely.
whether or not your project will get published or not.
I know, that's the truth. The hard truth.
Yeah, I still remember
Um,
during my grad school, um, in the beginning of my PhD, I was like stuck with a PCR optimization for my samples.
mm,
And the day when I used to run agarose gel to see those PCR products.
mhm.
And the day one when I got those perfect bands on my agarose gel, I I took like a whole laugh for a dinner. I was like, this is my celebration because this is first positive results of my PhD.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
And you'll always remember that.
Yeah.
Well, Anamika, it's been really great talking to you, and I hope that our listeners really enjoy hearing about your story, and your path and how you ended up basically doing almost everything, but coming back to industry and to something that you enjoy, and the challenges that you faced as an immigrant. That's a whole there's a whole big percentage of PhD students in this country that are going to go through that or are going through it now. So um, just know that the support is here, right?
Um, Thank you so much, Kate, for having me here.
Yeah,
I feel like very fortunate to tell my story to everybody, and I just like
yeah,
hope like maybe bunch of people if get a benefit out of that, or like feel motivated or supported. It's like everything for me.
that's great. I love
That's what
that.
I want from my audience.
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much for coming on the show, and maybe we'll check in a little bit, see how you're doing, give everyone an update.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for having me. Good night.
Thanks to Anamika for coming on the show. If you or someone you know wants to be interviewed on Impact Factor, feel free to reach out via Instagram and follow us for updates at ImpactFactorPod. Thank you all for listening and have a great week.